whoever it is, they want to hear from their boss first
Mm.
and not be the low man on the totem pole type thing. But I think it's important to communicate with those guys out there in the job site. Say, how you doing? Checking things and everything going well. Yep, this is going to be a neat project. Talk them up. The customer's very happy. They love what you're doing. That type of thing. Make them feel good. Gets morale up. But job site stuff is important. I thought about keeping things clean. I think that's important. Hey everyone, Chris G here, Hard Hat CEO. Glad you made it for another episode. Got Kevin Palmieri here, and it has been, I guess, another 7 days? My goodness, Kevin, welcome. How you doing today?
I'm living the dream, my friend. I had an idea for today's episode based on an experience that I had.
Okay.
So I am a business owner who works with clients. And I remember the days where I would just have one client at a time. And it was pretty easy, all things considered. And then when you start working with multiple people, there's a lot of different things that can get mixed up. So I thought doing an episode on balancing multiple projects would be good coming from your experience and expertise.
There's a lot. Well, when I started, it was always pencil and paper, and sometimes even today it's pencil and paper. But there's a lot of softwares out there that can help do that.
Mm.
But software is only as good as the information you give it. So what I like to do is look at things and prioritize them. And, you got all these projects up there and you're trying to figure out what's going on. You should use a calendar of some sort, spread out your task, whatever is necessary. So don't forget. Those are important. If you can get reminders set on that software or however you want to do it on your phone and so forth, prioritize your task. Um, if you have a team, that's even better, where you can kind of spread that. You're still responsible. You're still spreading that out amongst other people. If you have a project manager can't be on site everywhere or something. They can't be everywhere just like you can't be. So if you have on-site projects, you want one person in responsible for that at that point. They might not know everything, but they know who to go find and who ask if it's necessary. Empower them people, obviously, if you're going to do that. Let them make decisions with guidelines. You got to make decisions there. Um, I talked about writing stuff on a calendar or having a calendar. You got to have a master calendar. And some people can go into, well, I need a calendar for this job, and you might, but you need to have one master, I think, where everything's tied to. You
Mm.
can have other softwares out there that'll take one calendar and you have multiple calendars under it, but it all goes back to the one. Um, there's softwares everywhere, but yeah, you can do that. Um, it'll tell you if you have a scheduling conflict too, maybe in advance, so you know. Um, put on there when you do the calendar. I believe that you should put the stuff that you have to have first, so it's not getting conflicted. Um, we've talked about this before, Kevin.
Mm.
If you're determined to be done at 5 o'clock on your calendar, you make everything after 5 o'clock not available until the next morning. And that can be hard to do sometimes.
Of
But
course.
once you get used to it, but it's dedication. And maybe it's not 5, maybe it's 6, or whatever time that you set for yourself, and you feel comfortable with that. Hopefully, if you're delegating, then you can kind of make it easier because you're getting a lot more done during the day. Um, Standardize your process. I think what last week we talked about bidding,
Mhm.
and I mentioned doing a form, right? Standardize that stuff. You get it where everybody's talking the same language, the same thing, everybody's on the same page. That way you're not confusing everyone and somebody might go in one direction and they're not even supposed to be out there, come back into the fold. What made you think that was necessary and fix that? But your communication as far as your language, so everybody's all on the same page, everybody knows what they're talking about. You have a standardized forms or communication. Um, let's see here. Sometimes you'll have what they call a job ticket, and some people call it job packets, job something, where you keep all the information in one spot.
Mm.
And it depends on your plan, whether that's on the job site and that stays there, or it's on the line. You go look online for it, and so everything's there. I love things that's online because once you change something, it's changed everywhere. Once you make a copy of something and you have a change, and you forget the one copy over there, it does not change. That's a pain. That's a pain. But I love digital. If you make it digital and universal, that's another way of managing that project. having to, I also, and this actually, no, we talk about bidding later, but this is important to your project managing. Don't duplicate information, meaning that once you put something in, they're called custom fields if you're using them in computers.
Mm,
Basically, if you change it one place, it get changed everywhere else the same way. And what I mean by that is that you got the communication, you can make the change. There's no duplication because if something says um, do it twice here in one spot and then it says over here double, you and I know that means the same thing,
right,
but
right.
it confuses people and as person filling out stuff, it aggravates me. It's like I just put this in there once. You ever fill out a form at the doctor's office and every page, and once you put your name,
Of course.
yeah. I mean, why? I mean, you're going to put it in the computer. It ought to know your name, but that type of stuff just wears me slick. And I think it's important as being efficient and not frustrating people. Just make your forms efficient. Put it that way.
Mm-mm-mm. What
Um,
about when you're running? So let's say you.
sorry, I got a little tangent
No, no,
there. So
you're
go
good.
ahead.
You're good. You're good. When you're, so let's say you have two. So right now you have two jobs.
Yep.
What are the most common mistakes that you've seen when that happens? Is it, yeah. What's the most common? How does it normally go when people run into troubles?
I would say that's a common. I've seen it happen. Is stuff gets shipped to the wrong location.
Hmm.
Um, I got a couple of them. Back, this is a long time ago. I worked in Fulton, Missouri, and that's Fulton MO. But there's also a Fulton MI,
Mm.
and somebody didn't understand the state abbreviations, and it went to Fulton, Mississippi, and they're checking FedEx and say, "Yeah, it got delivered." Everything's like, we don't have nothing here. Come to find out, it's just a simple letter, and that went to a different location. Um, Matter of fact, street names. I've had jobs go to the wrong street. Well, actually, a dumpster got delivered to the wrong street, and it just so happened that there was a same street name in one city, the same damn number too. The only difference was the city. And I'm looking for this dumpster. This has been years ago. I'm looking for this dumpster, and no dumpster there. And I said, "Well, delivered it." "Well, I don't know where you put it at." Somebody needs to contact somebody. And it come to find out, and it was only 20 minutes away, which is funny, but they had to go get the dumpster and bring it back. So
Mm.
just little things like that I find can happen, and we try to eliminate those types of things. Other problems having more than one project, keeping them straight sometimes. I get so not I, but you can look at so many numbers, so many things, and somebody asks you something job. I I don't know. I look at so many things, and you can't go from memory, or you shouldn't go from memory because something's going to happen. You're going to be wrong. Those type of things happen. A salesman can get into that game because he's got jobs that he's quoting, he's got jobs that are live, and he needs to keep those straight. And how do you keep them straight? Going back to that job ticket mentality, you always had a job number, and
Mm.
that seemed to solve the problem. That number goes with this job. That's what you use for stealing materials to. That's what you use for billing. Everything relates to that number. And it could be also, if depending on if it's a repeating customer, you could have a customer number, and that could be also important. It's just those type of things that you don't really think about until you get a bunch of jobs together, and then you get all these numbers in your mind, and how do you keep them straight? So
What about somebody who is just about to pick up their second project and this is the first time they're going to be balancing multiple projects? What advice would you give to them so they don't fall into a trap of some sort?
make a checklist, make a standardized checklist. When I teach other people how to build homes, I took everything in my mind I could think of, and I'm always adding to it. But here, just do this, check it off. Do this, check it off. So when you come to that job and you're ready and you want to set everything else aside, you can look at that checklist and say, "Here's where I'm at. What do I do next?" And I think that's a big one,
Mm.
whether it be for yourself in a smaller company or even your estimators, your salespeople, your production project managers, and so forth. That way they can have an idea where they're at and know what's going on.
What about
Um,
on the job site physically?
Keep it organized and clean. I think it's a really big one. And you've got a working form or something. You can have things there. Don't have to be checklist. I think they either have the job ticket or plans or if it's digital, have access to their phone. However you want to do that, how they have access to. But some of these softwares out there will have apps you can look through your phone on,
Mm,
and that'll help them there as well. Just kind of giving that guy something to know. Um, Depending on how big you are, you might have production meetings daily or weekly or however that works out, and have a little communication there with everybody. It doesn't have to be physically on site necessarily. If you want to do Zoom and Google Meet like we do, it's very handy
mm.
just to be able to see everybody and say, get everything hashed out. Maybe that's just for the week. Maybe on a Monday, everybody gets together and then, because you can get to a point where you have too many meetings too, and that's not efficient either. So
I
I'm
know
not
those
promoting.
feelings.
Yeah, I'm not promoting a lot of meetings, but I am thinking there are some important ones, especially when you're starting a job. Get everybody involved. Probably have a little quick meeting about this job, depending on how big it is, and the people that are responsible. Um, and then let the other people. So about the job site. Let your working foreman be the communicate to the other workers.
Mm,
That's important. Don't. It's not. I've had this. I've been bad at it because I like to talk. Uh, but I'll go out and I'll talk to them people and I'll tell them a few things. Like, okay, here you go. And but what you need to do if you're going to do that, make sure your working foreman knows before they do. You know what I'm saying? They don't
mhm,
want to hear, and they don't want to hear it from. They want to hear it from you or your boss, their boss, whoever it is. They want to hear from their boss first,
mm.
and not be the low man on the totem pole type thing. But I think it's important to communicate with those guys out there in the job site. Say, how you doing? Checking things and everything going well. Yep, this is going to be a neat project. Talk them up. The customer's very happy. They love what you're doing. That type of thing. Make them feel good. Gets morale up. But job site stuff is important. I thought about keeping things clean. I think that's important. Makes people feel like they're not well. It's safety for one thing, but it's just it's also mentality. But it's more of a. I think when you go in and you work with something clean, it feels better than going into a bunch of mess. And
Definitely.
especially if you got more than one crew or you got more than one um, for like drywall guys. Okay, so you got the hangers and you got the mutters. Well, the drywall mutters don't want to come after guys and hung drywall, and they got scraps all over the floor, and they got to walk on it, and you got dust everywhere, getting in their mud. So one crew's going to clean up after itself, and the next crew comes in. But then the same way, the mud guys need to be cleaned up. So when your painters come in, they ain't got to. The painters ain't got to worry about. So
Mm.
basically, treat people like you want to be treated, and if people don't understand that part, just make it part of the process, and it'll just become habit to them.
If somebody's running, say somebody's running one crew, they just have one crew.
Yep.
Do you suggest, and again, your experience in this, does somebody have multiple jobs and they work a half day at one job, they go to the other job? How do you schedule them out so you're actually making progress?
I don't think during the day. No, it's not. It's not set in stone. But usually during the day, the most efficient way is get to the job site, complete it, or at least complete the day.
Yeah.
There's going to be times where you have to pull people away from the job. Not, and it's ideal to do it in the morning. So in the evening, if there's something needs to happen, like if you have more than one crew, or at least you have a team. I think you get more done in a team than you do with individuals.
Mm,
And it depends on what they're doing too. I mean, if there isn't, even though you got three people on a team, you need three people to finish this job.
yeah.
And that's a question you have to have. So you could set it up where if you had 3-man team and they're about done with the project, but there's not everybody needs to be on site, send that one guy over to that job and do the finishing detail list or whatever we call it. Some people call it a checklist um, or a hit list. What are things that need to be fixed? I was mentioning drywall. Is there a dent in this drywall that needs to be coated?
Mm,
We saw it, check it, fix it, go on. But you only need three guys for that.
right.
So the other two guys, in this case, can go to another job site and prep for it. So then the following day, whenever all three get together, they're ready to roll, and a lot of prep's already done.
Mm. So it's
And it's
case
kind
by
of
case.
it's case by case. It's scheduling, common sense type thing. Um, Depending on the type of, if you have more than one crew, doing more than one thing. For example, if I was talking about mutters. So if you got guys that can hang drywall and you got guys that can mud drywall, not all hangers can be mudders, that's for sure. But I would think some mudders could be hangers because it's not. somebody might argue with me, it's it's more manual than finesse on the mudding. So, finesse is mudding. If you ever mudded drywall, it's a talent in itself and takes a nice hand. When you're hanging drywall, you got to be strong and you know what you're doing and you still forth where to cut. So my point being is, if you need to get a job finished drywalling so the mudders can come in, you take a guy off your mud crew, have him go help the hanging crew just to get that done, so they can get out of the way, so the next team can come in.
Mm,
And it's kind of because it doesn't do you no good if your mudders are done waiting on hanging.
right.
Get the
Okay.
hanging done so they can come in behind you. In the same sense, I've known a lot of painters that can be drywall finishers. And if your painting crew is waiting for your mudders to be done, and one of the guys can finish, go help them so we can keep going. And that's more of a judgment call. But you get better at it as you look at it and say, well, gosh, dang, they're just standing around doing nothing. What can I have them do that's productive to help us keep moving on?
When you're setting deadlines and goals for deadlines, how does that change when you're doing multiple jobs as opposed to one? Do you give yourself more leeway? Is there
Well, again, it depends on the job and the customer. So, for example, some commercial jobs have dates on them,
Mm,
and you got a deadline. If you don't hit that deadline, then you're paying money back to them, type thing. So that takes priority over most things. But that being said, you have that master calendar. You got an idea where you're at. You know where your crews are at, and you can kind of look at the schedule. If you even have a scheduler on board, let's say you're big enough to have a scheduler, that scheduler can figure out where they're supposed to be and ebbs and flows and so forth. And if we're ordering materials in advance, well enough in advance, you're not going to have any delays. Um, that type, and then not to say that won't happen, but it could. I mean, if they do, they do. But you've got a little playroom, and you're not going to give even if you're doing a contract or commercial, and you think you can do it in 4 weeks, you're going to tell them 5,
yeah.
unless the competitors say 4, and then that's a negotiating issue. But okay, um, there's a lot of things that come to the negotiation side, but they understand what's going on. Even banks, I had one time I had a quote from a bank, and the bank wanted to know when it's going to be done. And I said, "What do you? Oh, I want to do it as fast as I can, bar no God foreseen. Will it be done in 11 months or less?" Absolutely. He's like, "Yeah, that's what you want me to tell you." So most people understand. I mean, the banks understand it. 11 months to take to build a house, unless it's a mansion, should be uh, not necessary. Put it that way, or you're not big enough, or whatever. You you bit off more you can chew, but that's a long time to build a house. But anyway, did I answer your question?
You answered my question. Yeah. What I guess is there anything that's obvious to you now that wasn't obvious in the beginning when you went from one to multiple jobs?
Yeah. Um, have post review meetings, meaning have a review meeting after it's done to identify what went well and what could be fixed to happen next time.
Mm,
Because at a smaller company, you're doing it all yourself, and you either forget to write down things or you just don't even realize it could be something better. And when you have a group or a team and they get together and say, "Hey, I wish we'd done this," or going back to that form thing, that form needs to have a checkbox here for this particular, add this to the checklist. Or, the doors came in a week later than expected. Um, Maybe next time we need to order them on this day
mm.
instead of waiting to this. Or maybe that's the first thing we order on day one when we get our deposit money, doors, that type of thing.
Okay.
But really, just learning, and here's what went well, here's what went wrong, and how we're going to make it what's wrong better. So
Is there anything that's easier than you expected? When you first started, you were like, "Oh, this is gonna be really challenging," and it actually ended up being easier? It's a loaded question.
it is. Plumbing, I like plumbing. I always thought plumbing would be hard. And not that it isn't, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of work, and you got to know a lot of things about how things work together. But a lot of things just common sense,
Mm,
but you got to be good at it and find those people that are really good at it. I mean, I've said before, just because I can do something doesn't mean I should.
yeah.
So I shouldn't be the plumber. I can plumb a house, but that's not my specialty. And I think I mentioned one time before, I told a story about a guy's, I used to do my own concrete, and I had a buddy. And he said, "You know what you're saving?" I said, "No, I really didn't. I hadn't." I mean, he goes, "By you doing all this work, do you realize what you're saving?" I said, "No, I just figured I'd be cheaper and make a little more money." But it's taken me a while, and I had to hire some people to help me. He goes, "Let me just bid it, and you make your decision." Okay, okay. So he gave me a price one day, and I looked at the math and calculated the hours I was putting into the process. Hell with that. Find somebody, find somebody really good at what they do. Let them do it. You get on with it. Make more money, and you make money on them. Now you might not make as much money, but you're gonna make more money because you get more projects done. They're faster. Do it every day, and you get good at it. And they might take a little better care of you because you're getting them repeat business. That's been that really has been the thing that's changed the most. I don't do any of the stuff I used to.
Hmm.
I used to do it all, but we've talked about how long I've been in the business, 2001, and back then we did it all: plumbing, painting. Well, actually, I hate painting. I had my partner paint, but I did the drywall. I did the everything other than paint and or HVAC. I don't want to get in the. I do not want to be a heating and air guy. I'm not built for it.
Yeah,
Can't
no,
keep frost on
understandable.
attics underneath the
I
crawl spaces.
I did that for a summer, Chris. That was
Oh yes, hot attics.
shout out
Woo.
to HVAC people.
Oh, I hear you. But yeah, anyway, it's just that's what I've learned over the years that
Okay.
even though some stuff might be simple or perceived as easy, um, let somebody else do it what they do and share the love. And there's a lot of work out there for everybody.
Share the love. All right. What is the hard at CEO takeaway of the day?
Back to delegate. And I say that delegate, whatever you want to call it, find somebody else to help you do what you need to do, whether it be project management or concrete, the actual work itself. Um, identify what you can do, not what you can do, what you enjoy doing and do well, and then turn other things over to other people. There you go.
Beautifully said. All right, friends. So if you are balancing multiple projects, maybe for the first time, maybe you want to do it more efficiently, maybe you want to hopefully learn something, we will have the link in the show notes for Chris's calendar, and you can hop on a call and discuss all of that stuff. Chris has a lot of experience, over 20 years, long time in the business, and has learned a ton and probably made all the mistakes and can help you avoid those mistakes. So we'll have the link in the show notes. Click that for a little bit of a contractor breakthrough session. And I'm sure you will meet some new friends from that, Chris.
Great. Well, thank you, Kevin, for that.
Of course.
And as always, we've enjoyed ourselves. We'll talk to you next week. Bye bye.